Training categories. New miner training.
A person who is beginning employment with a production operator or an independent contractor who is not an experienced miner is considered a new miner for training purposes. Prior to beginning work, a new miner must receive a minimum of 4 hours of training in the following 7 subjects: an introduction to the work environment, hazard recognition and avoidance, review of the emergency medical procedures, escape and emergency evacuation plans, and instruction on the fire warning signals and firefighting procedures. Health and safety aspects of the task being assigned, including the contents of the mine's HazCom program. Miners' rights and representation. A description of the supervisors and miners' representatives' lines of authority and the responsibilities of supervisors and miners' representatives. And finally, reporting hazards. The time that is spent covering each of these subjects counts towards the required 24 hours of training.
Training categories. Newly hired experienced miner training.
Before a newly hired experienced miner begins work, they must receive training which provides an overview of the 7 initial subjects which were covered during the new miner training. A newly hired experienced miner who returns to the same mine following an absence of less than 12 months would not be required to receive experienced miner training. However, this miner must be provided with training on any changes that occurred at the mine during their absence before beginning work. If the miner missed any annual refresher training during their absence, they would need to be provided with that within 90 days. When hiring an experienced miner, it is the operator and contractor's responsibility to determine the level of experience of that miner based upon their work and training history. Any experienced miner whose training is current and moves from one mine site to another must still receive site-specific hazard awareness training at each mine site where he works.
Training categories. Annual refresher training.
Annual refresher training must include instruction on changes at the mine that could adversely affect the miner's health or safety. Refresher training must address health and safety subjects that are relevant to the mining operations at the mine. Operators and contractors have the flexibility to determine the subjects to be covered based upon the needs of their workforce and their operations. Annual refresher training anniversary dates are tracked monthly. For example, if a miner completed annual refresher training sometime in February, the next annual refresher training would need to be completed by the end of the following February.
Training categories. New task training.
A reasonable amount of time must be allotted for new task training on each assigned task based on the miner's needs and the complexity of the task. For example, if an experienced miner is trained on a specific piece of equipment and is then assigned to operate a similar piece of equipment, that miner would need new task training on the new piece of equipment. Although there may be similarities among different types of equipment, each has their own unique operational characteristics. Your training plan must address each instance of task training, which would include a description of the teaching method, course materials, evaluation methods, and the name of the competent person who will conduct the training. Additionally, the plan lists the approximate amount of time that will be spent on each type of task training. The time that is spent conducting task training will then be recorded and listed on the certificate of the training form. Each record of task training will need to be made at the completion of the training. New task training records must be certified at least once every 12 months or at the request of the miner. Task training can be incorporated into your new miner training plan.
Training categories. Site-specific hazard awareness training.
Mine entrances are very important areas where there are typically many events occurring. As you enter the mine, there can be a lot of truck traffic in areas where smaller vehicles are difficult to see. A mine entrance can be a continually revolving hazardous atmosphere where you need to be alert and aware of your surroundings. Follow any posted signage, and at any time, if you are uncertain, stay in your vehicle. As you come onto mine property, there will be a designated location for you to stop, review, and receive a site-specific training form. Site-specific hazard awareness training is very flexible, but adequately outlines specific mine hazards and practices. Hazard awareness training may be provided by a number of different methods, which may include written hazard warnings, oral instruction, signs and posted warnings, walk-around training, or by any other appropriate means that would be informative of the site-specific hazards. This training would not be required for anyone who is accompanied at all times by an experienced miner who is familiar with the site-specific hazards.
Training categories. Record-keeping requirements.
Part 46 and 48 requires that operators record and certify the training that miners receive. An MSHA Form 5000-23 must be used to record and certify Part 48 training. A copy of each miner's training records and certificates must be made available for inspection by MSHA. Independent contractors who are miners must have their training certificate available for MSHA's inspection at the mine site where they are working. Operators and contractors must make available for inspection by MSHA and by miners and their representatives training plans, training records, and certificates. A record of training is not required for site-specific hazard awareness training for anyone who is not a miner. However, the operator must be able to provide evidence that that training was provided. This evidence may include the training materials used, including appropriate warning signs, written information that may have been provided, or a visitor log that reflects the site-specific hazard awareness training was given.